Now.
Yes, Mohammed and Katya, we are live now. How are you doing?
Great, great. Thank you very much. Thank you for having us.
Great, thank you for having us.
Okay, so we're doing the conference about strength-based schooling. And here your topic would be about unschooling. So finding the strength within deciding to go an alternative way of schooling your child. So you want to tell us first, what is the difference between alternative schooling, homeschooling, and unschooling? Because there's a bit of a slight difference. So Katya, I know that you and Mohammed decided to go to live in Dahab, and decided to have your own self-directed kind of education for your own children. So we want to learn about this experience, and we want to learn how easy can we do that, or how difficult we can do that. So tell us the struggles and tell us the challenges and the opportunities out there. So I'm going to leave the talk for you both, and couples deciding to do unschooling for their children. Mohammed and Katya. Katya.
Yes, I'll go first. I'll just briefly introduce myself. My name is Katya. I'm originally Ukrainian. I've been teaching internationally for the past 13 years. I've taught at schools in Egypt, Tanzania, Hong Kong. And yes, last year we decided to make a switch and we started teaching online, and we decided to take the kids out of schools, traditional schooling, and decided to homeschool. And actually, we thought first that we were going to do like the traditional homeschooling. We'll follow a specific program, and we're going to follow a curriculum. Maybe we'll choose like a British curriculum or an American curriculum, and then be like, okay, we're going to do math in that, English in that, science and social studies. But we realized that this was not realistic for our family. We're a family of travelers. We love to travel. Right now, we're not even in Dahab. We're in Marsa Alam. Actually, so there you go. That's your, geography and natural science. And yes, and we decided that we need to look into other options, and unschooling was the best option for us. And schooling, the difference between homeschooling and unschooling is not really that vast. Homeschooling is more structured, so you've got a certain curriculum that you would follow, and normally the parents do it like at that specific task in the time in the morning we're going to do math, and then at that specific time we're going to do English, for example. Unschooling is basically leaving the school behind and doing what your child needs and what your child wants. So if your child is thrive, like I'm going to give example of our own son Karim. He's one of our sons. He's an older child. He's really gifted, mashallah, in science, in physics and chemistry. So he's doing physics and chemistry way above his grade level. There's no physics and chemistry in grade 5, but he's doing that. But maybe he's a little behind in other subjects, so he could be doing, let's say, grade 4 of, I don't know, history, let's say. So it's not about, or writing. It's not about like what grade your child is at, but what your child needs at that specific point in time. And we really pay attention to what they thrive at and what they don't necessarily like, and we take it as their strength and we go with it. So it's very much child-led. Would you like to add something?
Yeah, this doesn't mean that it is anti-structure. It just means that the structure that will be followed does not necessarily conform with the structures that already exist. Perhaps the structures that already exist this way for a specific milieu or for a specific situation, which is a school situation, which is great because it has to be structured in a way that enables students to learn, teachers to teach, and prepare stuff, as well as all the logistics to take place successfully and so on. But if we're not bound by that, then perhaps this structure does not necessarily have to be our best option. This is where another structure comes into place, and this is what we mean by unschooling, as in leaving the usual way of doing things, or the going-ons of the day, and perhaps structuring it in a slightly different way. In this case, for example, Katya talked about Kareem studying science at a certain level. This is because he's very enthusiastic when it comes to science. We're not forcing it on him or anything. It was very obvious to us that he had like that naturalistic intelligence, if you will, when he attended a class of marine biology, and he basically finished it, and the teacher was like, well, okay, that's all I have for him at this age. So, at this point, well, he has to finish high school first, and then maybe he can pick that up in the future. This is it. Well, if he cannot go to grade 11 and attend their physics classes. That's not going to happen in the school. But, well, now he doesn't have to. So he does study physics separately as well as chemistry because he's very interested in that. And again, he chose that. So you can imagine how eager he is to learn as well.
How old is Kareem?
He's turning 11 in December.
Turning 11 in December. So there's no kind of grade level curriculum he's following. He's just following his interest and his flow and his desire to know more about this knowledge.
It's a little bit of both, because we do want to make sure that, at some point, it's, again, we made this choice because we thought it's suitable for our family. If at some point our kids say, no, we want to go back to regular schools, we're not going to stand in their way. We'll be like, okay, great, let's go back. So I want to make sure that they also have the certain level of where they need to be in, like English and math and, history and literature and all of that stuff. But we're not overthinking this much. We're doing it more like, okay, we can see that the kids are able to do it. I'll give you an example of our other child, Adam, who is 7. He just barely started reading because he didn't have any interest in reading at all. He hated. He loved learning. He's very knowledgeable, but he hated anything to do with school. So we decided, you know what, we're just going to let it go. Let's see what's going to happen in a year. And we noticed that he asked us to study now. He asks us to do things. He wants to learn. He wants to read. He wants to know things. And it's because we didn't force him to do it the traditional way. And he really picked up his interest. And he's interested. He likes to know things. He's also interested in science. He's also interested in, history and even politics. I don't know. He's got like a wide range of interests now. And it seemed like because we didn't force him that, at the age of 6, at the age of 5, you have to know how to read and write. Not every child is capable of doing that. And not every child is ready to do that. And that's for us the most important point. We should not force children to do something when they're clearly not ready for it.
Interesting. I can see that there's a lot of beliefs coming out of the way you're expressing things about educating your child. So if you tell me 3 important beliefs that it's like, taking your mind all the time when you're talking about education, what can be a belief about education that you can share?
3 beliefs about like our beliefs in education or education in general?
I'll take 2 from you and 2 from Mohamed. And because I can see there is like your energy of talking like you're very cool about it, taking education very lightly. If you didn't read this year, let's wait for a year. So what is happening in your mind? What are the thoughts that come into your mind that is not like making you rush like the normal parent of wanting to educate the child and wanting them to meet the standards, and by 7 years old he's ignorant, he's not reading yet? I mean, that's the kind of things that parents would be rushing to have accomplished with their children, but you're laid back, you're relaxed. So what are the things that you're telling yourself and you're so much in congruence with?
You go.
Okay. Well, I guess the first belief here is it really is not that dichotomous. It's not black and white. For example, if the child has not achieved A, that doesn't mean that he has necessarily failed it. It's different. It might just be on the way. So, okay, we will be striving or aiming at always keeping up with the grade level material and skills, etc., etc. But it's okay if it takes a little longer to do that, as long as there's evidence of learning elsewhere. Because otherwise it's just laziness. Probably on our part, not the student's part. But yeah, it's not black and white. It's okay if things take a certain route. Again, a different structure. That's, I guess, my first belief, that there is no one structure. That's thing 1.
So the first one, there is no one structure.
Yes.
Yeah. I think for me, my first belief is a negative belief. In fact, it's my belief that grades are useless. I think that you can never judge every child based on standard testing. I'm completely against this. I always was and I always will be. And I understand that sometimes you cannot avoid it, and this is why we need to have certain preparation for it. But for me, it's very clear, and this is what I always tell my kids, that I do not care if you're going to pass the exams or not. What I want you to know, I want you to enjoy it, first of all, when you do the testing, like, just for fun, enjoy it. Second of all, just know what you can learn from it. Do not take it as those points, they're judging you as a person and they're judging you as a student. They cannot possibly assess all these wonderful things that you might have, because they're not meant for it. They're meant to make everybody at the same level. And this is the exact opposite of what education means for me.
So grades are useless, and you explained it why. Another belief.
Yeah, I'd like to borrow from that actually. I mean, steal almost. But this actually, we've seen that happen. See, I didn't use the word proof. We've seen that happen through our experience. At one point at a certain school, I was asked to teach IGCSE English. And of course, it's very exam-based. It's all about the grade you're going to get at the end. A star. And I found myself teaching through inquiry. I did not start from day one or from the second or third month teaching, here are exam type questions, just hammering these exam type questions. I did not do that at all. I taught through inquiry. We talked about or we studied, of course, the content, yes, but we looked at it not from a content perspective, but from a conceptual understanding perspective, right? So my students were not trying to finish the homework questions. No, they were trying to analyze the text they just read and explain why it created or elicited these feelings, for example, when they read it, etc., etc. It was truly interesting, and they meant what they said whenever they said anything, or when they wrote anything. The funny thing is, they had excellent results. They actually did get the A's and A stars and all that stuff. So yeah, you really don't have to teach for an exam, because then what are you learning? Like, this exam is not going to exist in real life situations in the future. Being able to show off show off might not be an excellent piece of vocabulary here, but being able to show what you learned is great. Like having a portfolio, for example, is an excellent example of that. But that doesn't mean that this is your only aim when you're learning. How to pretend that you've learned something, or how to just get through it. No. The test is going to be exactly that, a test of whether education worked or not. Education is the goal. So let's enjoy education, enjoy the process, and so on. Not just aim for the grades. That makes sense.
Yeah, and then I'm sorry, just to add something. Like we are teaching online. We've got students from 39 nationalities, I think now.
Yes.
So we've got, we're a very international agency right now, and we have something very common among many students. When we ask them, why do you want to learn that? They say, because my mom told me, or because the school told me to. They don't want to learn because they don't want to learn. They want to learn because they want to pass specific, either the approval of their parents, or the approval of the school, or the approval of their peers. They don't want to learn. If you ask, for example, our children, why do you want to learn? It's because they want to learn. They never say because they want to get a good grade. They don't know what grades are, because they've been lucky enough to be in an IB system. We're in a primary school before we switched to unschooling. In primary, there are no really grades, but also because, at home, there's no emphasis on grading. We do not judge them based on the results that they get. We judge them based on the process and whether they're enjoying it or not, and whether they're benefiting from it or not.
Outcome.
Yeah.
Interesting. If I may ask you about your history, about your past life during in school. So what did you didn't like about your school when you were in Ukraine? You got educated in Ukraine. So what was not working well with you at your school?
I feel, for me, it's everything, really. I was very much like my own child, Adam, who is a free spirit, I'd say. I loved asking questions and, always learning new stuff. I cannot not have answers. Like, for me, this is very important. I have to know the answers. And because I asked a lot of questions, the teachers didn't like me much. And also, I was not very good in science, which is funny because I teach science now, because I had to reteach myself. But I always was told that oh, you're stupid, you don't understand these things, you're not good enough. And I, was growing up thinking I'm not good enough. And this is terrible. Why would any child think that he or she is not good enough just because you know, you don't get something. Well, no, actually you didn't get that because the teacher probably didn't explain it the way a child could have understood. Because there's no such thing. When I tell my older son who loves science that I hated science as I was growing up, he was like, what? How can somebody hate science? Science is everything. You can explain everything in the world in you know, if you understand science. And I see it now. I know that it's all the truth, but it's because of how he's learning it. It's not the way I was taught. I was taught, you know, like you have to memorize formulas, and if you didn't understand this formula, then you would never understand the following. It was terrible. My experience overall was not great. My friends were great, but not and hanging out, but not the education itself.
And
Yeah.
how about you, Mohammed? Were you educated in Egypt?
Yes, I actually went to a public school in Egypt my whole life. Not international education, really not international education. I noticed the major difference between like two types of teachers, and maybe it's more like a spectrum. But I'm going to talk about the extremes to just to make a point. I noticed a big difference between the teachers who taught us in order to finish the curriculum, to fulfill their, I don't know, the quota of information they were supposed to spoon feed the students. Because, you know, it was on a schedule as well. They had to finish X number of lessons within X number of classes, etc., etc. That did not take into account how much traction they got with the students. And I understand that when you have 60 students in a classroom, you cannot exactly individualize, otherwise you'll need, you know, I don't know, a lot more than 1,000 days per year. But some of our teachers were very enthusiastic, especially those who were studying for their master's degree. And they were still in the field, they weren't only teaching, and then tutoring in the afternoon. Sometimes about there. They just had a very different energy, and the stuff that I remember from school until now, the things that I feel that I've really learned, walked away with, are certainly from the latter, not the former. So I started to think, okay, so which way do I want to lean? And certainly it's towards that, teaching things that I'm enthusiastic about, and teaching is certainly going to be more successful when a lot of enthusiasm is involved. Again, when it's about the concepts, when it's about the learning, when it's about what am I learning from that, what can I do with it, and not just will I be able to pass that or not. I think that's the main takeaway from my education experience in education.
Interesting. So how are you doing now? How are you? You said that it's okay to have a structure, yet there's no one-way structure. So how are you doing and managing? You have how many kids? You have 3 kids or?
Two.
Okay, 11 and 7. So how are you managing their education?
Just like we said, just like that. Yeah, specifics are like obviously because I'm
a daily routine that you have, like as if school started or all the year round. It's a school for you. I mean, unschooling is all year round, or do you have like certain months that you're as if that you started schooling?
Well, we don't have a certain timetable for the kids, nor for ourselves we do, because we have lessons at certain times, but also because we move around a lot, our structure of the day changes. Like, for example, yesterday we were in Husseir, and today we're in Marsa Alam. So you can imagine that, you know, the learning will be very different from one place to another, and the time of the day the kids are going to be learning. Again, learning, it's a very weird way to say it. They're always learning. Because what is learning? Them sitting down on the couch and writing? Well, that's learning. But also them running around on the beach and picking up rocks and finding out where these rocks come from, or swimming with a fish, and, you know, then later on learning what type of fish it is and why they only live in warm waters and not in cold waters. It's also learning. Everything is learning. You make learning what, you know, we try to make learning what learning is supposed to be. It's everywhere. It's not just when you open the book, now you're learning. You close the book, done. I'm no longer learning. Oh, and I was done. I disappeared, actually.
She disappeared. So your perspective about education is all life is the teacher. So anything around in the environment that you're in, even your Dahab, Cairo, or Marsa Alam, or whatever you're traveling to, you're utilizing the resources around you to educate your children.
Yes.
Or they are self-directed or interested or leading themselves to more interest to explore.
Yes. And on top of that, they also have classes that they attend. For instance, you know, like as we said, Karima attends physics and chemistry classes, coding. We look up for them, you know, because everything is online. So he attends, like, for example, coding classes with the Indian agency, and Chinese classes with the Chinese teacher. And they are also learning Chinese. They speak 4 languages. They have Arabic classes and Quran classes and Russian classes. So there's certain things that they do online at a structured time, because obviously it's the availability of the teachers, so we need to respect that. But everything that is offline, which is like the majority of things, then it would be at a very, I would say, slower pace than schools, but also a more, yes, but also a more in-depth learning as well, because they're learning on their own, and they're learning, you know, things, they take things further than just surface, right?
Yeah, I'm getting the feeling that your question was also about the specifics of the structure. How do we build the actual structure? Look, maybe I can describe it just from a different perspective. It's asynchronous. It's not a September to July. Right, and then July to August, or through August is just doing nothing at all. Depending on what we're doing with our life for during any certain period of time, it will look different. For example, we've been traveling for a few days. We decided that we're going to be traveling for about a week. During that week, certain things will keep going. These are the things that they study on their own, especially our older son. So he will keep learning the things that he learns on his own, because he takes huge interest in these things. He doesn't need us to remind him. We actually almost never do the reminding things, except with, you know, scheduled classes. So he will keep going with these. He will also keep going with as many of the online classes as possible. All right. But then maybe the stuff that he does using worksheets or the writing in English, for example, writing. Math pages that he's supposed to do every day. Maybe these things will be put on the back burner for this 1 week, and they will continue next week. So again, it's not always synchronized. It will be asynchronous. Some things will keep going. Some things will there will be some time off, and that will just basically have to meet our time off, because otherwise it's impossible to do. So on one hand, the learning is ongoing. It doesn't stop. You don't need to take a vacation if you choose to do the thing that you want to do. On the other hand, you're almost always on vacation, because whenever you travel, you just, you know, you pause things for a bit. It's fine. It's gonna be there when you come back to it. And again, we are keeping one end in mind, is we are striving or aiming at being at grade level with the things that we, you know, we're okay at, and we're always above grade level with the other things that we have great enthusiasm or eagerness for.
Interesting. So if other parents would like to know more about you, how to connect you, or how to communicate with you?
Yeah, we've got our Instagram page and Facebook page, LFC page. I can share it with you later on, and you can also.
You can add it to the comment area, so that people can check it. And
we welcome all the questions, you know, like you can join our courses if you have interest in, but also we also love to communicate with people. Like I have lots of questions when people ask, well, how do you do that? And, you know, would you recommend homeschooling, unschooling? And, you know, like we're always there to give advice, and we're always there to just like share our experience. So anybody can always reach out. We're pretty nice people.
Pretty responsive as well.
Yeah.
Last thing that I want to hear from you is that if you want to give advice to a very worried parent about education, what would that advice be?
Grades, education of grades, or just because the child is not getting good education? Depends on what the worry is. What would be the worry?
Just general worries about, let me use Egyptian worries about, I want my child to be academically performing so that he can get a good job. This is the worry that many of the parents would be having, that they want their kids to achieve academically for better life?
I my advice to all the parents all the time is like, please let your child be happy. Like, notice if your child is happy, because it's terrible when you notice, and it happens so often when the children are miserable when they go to school and they hate it, and they cry when they attend classes, and I'm always like, just pay attention to what your child is. Why is your child upset? Like, why is your child unhappy? Learning should be fun. It has to be fun. It has to be fun if we want to sustain learners. Otherwise, they're not going to learn.
Thank you, Katya. Mohamed, what would you advise?
Mine would be, get your child involved in the learning.
Okay, interesting. So be happy and be involved.
Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for sharing your experience and your adventure in learning, actually, with us, and making a lot of parents maybe interested to look more and explore the idea of unschooling. So thank you for being with us, and having happy children, involved children would add to their strength in life. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.